Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer with a number that kind of blew my mind. 23 pounds. That is the amount of ice cream the average American consumes every single year. I mean, it's a massive number, right? And it perfectly sets the stage for what we're looking at today. We all love this frozen treat, but have you ever stopped to think about what it actually takes to get it perfectly smooth and safe into your bowl? Because of that unbelievable demand, we're looking at an $11 billion global industry. It's actually the most popular category of frozen desserts worldwide. The financial scale of this universally loved stuff is just immense. And as you might guess, peak production happens right in the blistering heat of summer, especially around July. But, the story of ice cream isn't just some modern industrial marvel. This dessert actually has ancient royal roots. Way back in 2000 BC in China, people were freezing a mixture of rice and milk by packing it directly into the snow. Later on, around 618 AD, King Tung of Shang literally had an army of 94 icemen whose whole job was creating a dessert using buffalo milk, flour, and camphor. And it was the explorer Marco Polo who saw this process in China and brought the descriptions back to Europe in the 13th century. So welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are going on the micro to macro journey of ice cream science. We're going to explore the food science, the underlying physics, and the incredibly precise manufacturing steps that go into creating and protecting this dessert. Here's our roadmap for today. We've got the history of ice cream, the making process, the science of pasteurization, emulsions, and coconut milk, and we'll wrap up with freezing and spoilage protection. All right, section 1, the ice cream making process. Let's see how taking this from farm to freezer builds the foundation of our favorite dessert. Making this is a highly controlled sequence. First, we've got the blending of the mixture, where rapid agitation combines milk fat, solids, stabilizers, and emulsifiers. Then comes pasteurization and homogenization to make it safe and creamy. Step 3 is absolutely crucial. Aging the mixture for at least 4 hours at a cool 5 degrees Celsius. This is what crystallizes the fat and hydrates the proteins. Next, it hits the continuous freezers where air is pumped in, and hey, this is exactly where we get soft serve. Finally, solid flavors like nuts or candies are added, it gets packaged, and undergoes a rapid hardening at minus 25 degrees Celsius to lock in those tiny, perfectly smooth ice crystals. Section 2, the heat treatment. Zooming in on pasteurization. Let's pause our timeline for a second and zoom into the microscopic battle happening inside those vats. And that brings us to pasteurization. Basically, it's a mild heat treatment designed to completely destroy pathogens with minimal changes to the milk's composition, flavor, and nutrition. It is an absolute necessity. If you skip this, raw milk can carry some seriously harmful bacteria. Pasteurization ensures our safety, and it greatly enhances the shelf life by eliminating those invisible threats before the mix ever even sees a freezer. Now, the crucial point here is exactly how this heat is applied, and we generally see two main methods. The traditional way is batch or holding pasteurization. The mix just sits in a vat at 63 degrees Celsius for a full 30 minutes. But modern dairy technology gave us high-temperature short-time, or HTST pasteurization. This process pushes a continuous flow of milk through metal plates at 72 to 75 degrees Celsius for just 15 seconds. It's incredibly energy efficient, and it allows facilities to process massive volumes of milk safely and super quickly. But how do we actually know the pasteurization worked? Well, enter the alkaline phosphatase test, which I kind of like to call the pasteurization police. Alkaline phosphatase is an enzyme that's naturally found in raw milk. Conveniently enough, the exact amount of heat required to destroy this enzyme is almost exactly the same as the heat required to destroy harmful pathogens. So scientists use a quick chemical test to look for it. If the milk turns yellow during the test, the enzyme is still there, meaning the pasteurization failed. If it stays clear, the milk is perfectly safe. It's just a brilliant piece of forensic food science. Section 3, the emulsion puzzle, featuring coconut milk. Let's shift down to the chemical level and look at the highly unstable physics of an oil in water emulsion. We're going to use coconut milk as a really fascinating example of how plant-based ice creams are engineered. To understand this, we have to look at how coconut milk is extracted in the first place. It's pressed directly from the solid white endosperm, the meat, inside the shell. This is completely different from coconut water, which just sits in the hollow center. The rich, creamy milk comes directly from that fibrous, fatty white meat. And depending on how it's extracted, we get totally different products. Based on Codex Alimentarius standards, the key difference between light coconut milk, regular coconut milk, and coconut cream is simply the delicate balance of fat content to moisture content. For a really rich plant-based ice cream, we obviously need a good amount of fat. But naturally, the oil in coconut milk desperately wants to separate from the water.
So why does it separate? Well, it all comes down to the proteins acting as the interface between the oil and the water. Coconut milk contains these things called 11S globulins. They're hydrophobic, meaning they actively repel water. This causes the oil droplets to clump together into these large, unstable globs, leading to rapid separation. But it also contains albumins, which are water-soluble and naturally create much smaller, way more stable droplets. The problem we run into? Natural coconut milk is dominated by those unstable 11S globulins.
So to solve this volatile puzzle, to literally stop the ice cream from separating into a weird layer of water and a layer of fat, food scientists have to intervene. Research shows that adding small molecule surfactants, particularly a water-soluble one called tween 80, acts like a chemical bridge. It literally forces the formation of smaller droplets and locks the oil and water together, stabilizing the whole emulsion so it stays deliciously creamy and perfectly mixed. Section 4. Protection and Preservation, Defeating the Enemies of Ice Cream. We've built a mixture, pasteurized it, and stabilized it. Now let's zoom back out. Out in the real world, the finished ice cream faces some invisible adversaries. Bacteria, yeast, and molds are constantly trying to ruin the product. Manufacturers have to be incredibly careful with raw additions like fresh fruit or sugar, which can easily harbor fungi. But the most terrifying enemy? Listeria monocytogenes. Why? Because unlike most bacteria, Listeria can actively grow at 0 degrees Celsius. No way, right? It literally thrives in the cold, damp environments of freezing facilities, which makes strict sanitation absolutely critical. So think about this. We've used heat to kill the bacteria, and we freeze it to keep it safe. But ask yourself, once the ice cream is pasteurized, completely frozen, and shipped out on a truck, what is our absolute final line of physical defense against spoilage and the outside world? The answer is highly engineered packaging. You can't just put ice cream in anything. Glass, for example, is a terrible idea because extreme freezing temperatures make it highly susceptible to shattering. Instead, the industry relies on firm-walled plastics and thick, plastic-coated or waxed paper cartons. These materials are chosen specifically because they resist the formation of microscopic pinholes during shipping and all that rough handling. Because if that engineered packaging fails, the results are pretty disastrous. If there's even a tiny pinhole, or if the material isn't resistant to water vapor, you get the dreaded freezer burn. The inside of a freezing unit is actually a very dry environment. It will literally suck the moisture right out of the ice cream through any weak point in the packaging, causing the water to dehydrate and form those nasty, crunchy ice crystals all over the surface of your dessert. Good packaging actively prevents this moisture loss. To wrap up our explainer today, I actually want to leave you with a real university food science exam question. Ready? Why are ice cream containers made of firm plastic or waxed paper? Is it to resist water vapor, prevent spoilage, resist pinholes, or prevent freezer burn? Well, as we've learned on our micro to macro journey today, the answer is E, all of the above. The carton you pull out of the grocery store freezer isn't just a basic container. It's a meticulously engineered shield protecting an $11 billion feat of chemistry and thermal processing. Next time you grab a scoop, consider the crazy science that makes it all possible. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning what's in your food.